The wolf's eyes were fading, golden amber dimming to ash. Blood matted his midnight fur, the snowstorm biting into his flesh. Everyone else had walked past him. Everyone, except her. She thought she was saving a wounded animal. She had no idea she was cradling the dying Alpha King, rejected by his own pack, and destined to claim her as his mate. Welcome back to the Alpha's Romance Library, your home for the most addictive werewolf shifter romances. If you crave protective alphas, forbidden love, and fated mates that defy destiny, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe, drop a wolf face in the comments, and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing our pack grow across the world. Emma Thorne's life had been small, quiet, and almost invisible to the rest of the world. At 24, she spent most of her days in the Pinehaven Veterinary Clinic, mending the broken paws of stray dogs, nursing sick cats back to health, and soothing frightened animals with the kind of patience most people had lost long ago. But Emma knew what it was like to feel broken. She knew what it was like to feel rejected. 3 winters ago, a car crash had taken her parents from her. Since then, she had lived alone in the modest mountain cabin they'd left behind, surrounded by pine trees and silence. Grief had threatened to turn her cold, but Emma had chosen differently. She had poured her tenderness into every creature she cared for, believing, stubbornly, that even the most wounded deserved a chance. That night, though, fate would test that belief in a way she could never have imagined. The snowstorm had rolled in faster than the weatherman predicted. By the time Emma finished cleaning up the clinic and locking the doors, the winds had turned savage, and the mountain roads were coated in thick sheets of white. Her old truck coughed and rattled as she guided it down the winding path toward her cabin. The heater barely worked. The radio hissed static. Beyond the windshield, snowflakes slammed against glass like tiny shards of ice. She should have kept her eyes straight ahead, her thoughts focused only on reaching home. But headlights caught movement. Something dark against the white. At first, she thought it was a fallen branch. Maybe even the shadow of a boulder. But as she drew closer, her chest tightened. It wasn't a branch. It wasn't a boulder. It was alive. Her hands clenched the wheel. Her instincts screamed to keep driving. The storm was growing worse by the second. No one would fault her for choosing safety. But Emma couldn't. She pressed her foot to the brake, heart hammering. Something deep in her bones whispered that this was not a moment to walk away from. She stepped out of the truck, icy wind slicing her cheeks. Snow immediately soaked through her boots as she trudged toward the dark shape. Her flashlight beam shook in her numb fingers, cutting across the storm until it landed on fur. Her breath caught. A wolf. No, not just any wolf. Larger than anything she had ever seen in the wild. His midnight black fur was torn with deep gashes, blood staining the snow around him crimson. Bite marks scarred his shoulders and ribs. His body trembled violently, yet his head still lifted, weak but defiant. And then she saw his eyes, those golden amber eyes, glowing faintly in the storm. They locked onto hers with an intelligence that stole the air from her lungs. Emma's first instinct should have been fear. A creature this size, this powerful, even on the brink of death, could tear her apart. But fear didn't come. Compassion did. "Oh God," she whispered, kneeling in the snow. "What happened to you?" The wolf gave a low rumble, not quite a growl, not quite a whimper. His body sagged as though he was finally surrendering to the storm. Emma glanced back at her truck. He was too big. She couldn't carry him. But she couldn't leave him either. Her mind raced. She yanked open the truck's back seat and pulled out an old emergency blanket. Kneeling again, she slid it under his massive frame, inch by inch, gritting her teeth as her muscles burned from the effort. He was impossibly heavy, but she refused to stop. With every pull, every drag through the snow, she whispered to him, as though her voice alone could keep him tethered to life. Come on, big guy. Don't give up. Someone has to care about you. I care about you. Finally, she managed to haul his body into the bed of the truck, covering him with every blanket she could find. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her hands red and raw from the cold, but she had done it. Slamming the truck door shut, she turned the heater dial as high as it would go. It wasn't much. But it was something. Emma didn't know why she felt such a powerful pull to this animal. She didn't know why her chest ached like her own heart was breaking when she looked at him. All she knew was that she couldn't abandon him. As the truck rumbled back onto the road toward her cabin, the wolf's golden eyes flickered one last time before closing. And Emma whispered into the storm, voice trembling but certain. I won't let you die. Emma's cabin was a sanctuary to her, but tonight it felt more like a battlefield. By the time she rattled up the gravel drive and skidded to a halt, her arms ached from gripping the steering wheel and her lungs burned from the stress of keeping the truck steady on the ice-slick road. She jumped out, snow crunching beneath her boots, and rushed to the truck bed. The wolf was still breathing, but barely. His chest rose in shallow, uneven motions, each exhale misting faintly in the frozen air. Hold on, she whispered, brushing a hand across his fur. It was coarse, sticky with blood. Just hold on for me. Getting him inside was another battle. She had no one to call, no neighbors close enough to help, and animal control was out of the question. If anyone else saw him, they'd put a bullet in his skull before she could explain. No, this was on her alone. She dragged the blanket again, inch by inch, teeth gritted until finally she got his massive body across the threshold of her cabin. The wooden floor was instantly stained with red, a dark trail marking every step. Emma swallowed her panic. There was no time for fear. Her living room became an emergency clinic. She shoved aside the coffee table, yanked open the first aid kit she always kept stocked, and spread towels over the rug. Her hands shook as she cut away fur matted with blood, cleaned gashes with antiseptic, and stitched wounds deeper than any she had ever attempted on a clinic patient. The wolf didn't fight her. He should have, with that much raw power beneath his skin. But instead, he lay there, trembling, golden eyes tracking her with an intensity that made her heart trip over itself. It's okay, she murmured, forcing calm into her voice even as her pulse thundered in her ears. You're safe here. I'm not going to let you go without a fight. She worked for hours. The storm outside howled against the cabin walls, but Emma barely noticed. Her whole world had narrowed to this bleeding creature stretched across her living room floor. Every time his breathing stuttered, panic lanced through her chest. Every time his eyes fluttered closed, she pressed her hand to his fur and whispered until he opened them again. By midnight, she was slumped beside him, exhaustion pulling at her body. Still, she couldn't tear her gaze away from him. There was something strange about this wolf. Something she couldn't explain. Her fingertips brushed the curve of his paw, massive, clawed, lethal, and yet her heart softened instead of recoiling. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt a warmth ripple through her chest, like a tether forming between them, fragile but unbreakable. You're not alone, she whispered, leaning her head against the couch cushion. I know what that feels like. To be abandoned. To be rejected. But I'm not going to leave you. Her voice cracked at the memory of her parents. The nights after the accident, when everyone told her to be strong, but no one stayed long enough to see her break. The loneliness that had eaten her alive until she found comfort in the broken animals at the clinic. Maybe that was why she couldn't walk away tonight. Because she saw the same loneliness mirrored in this wolf's fading eyes. At some point, exhaustion claimed her. She drifted into uneasy sleep, curled on the floor near his side. And in her dreams, she was no longer in her cabin. She was running, barefoot through a forest glowing silver in the moonlight. Shadows of wolves moved all around her, their howls echoing like music. And always, she felt eyes on her. Golden, piercing, watching with recognition. When she startled awake, it was 3 a.m. The fire had burned low, shadows flickering across the room. At first, she thought it was the storm that had woken her. But then she heard it. A sound that froze her blood. Bones cracking. Flesh shifting. Her eyes darted to the wolf, and she froze. His body convulsed, muscles twisting beneath his fur. The gashes she had stitched strained and tore as his frame elongated. The sound of tearing, reshaping, breaking and rebuilding filled the room. Fur receded. Claws shortened. The muzzle collapsed into a human face, though still lined with blood and sweat. Emma's breath caught in her throat. A man lay where the wolf had been. Not just any man, he was beautiful in a way that was terrifying. Tall, broad-shouldered even in his unconscious state, skin inked with tribal tattoos that curved across muscles she had just seen torn open. His face was sharp, dangerous, the kind of face that belonged to someone carved from stone and shadow. And yet, even in his brokenness, he radiated power. Emma's instincts screamed at her to run. But her body wouldn't move. Some part of her, the same part that had refused to leave him in the snow, knew this was no accident. The wolf was a man. And somehow, she was meant to find him. Her voice shook as she whispered into the silence, more to herself than to him. "What are you?" But deep inside, a tremor told her she already knew the answer. Emma couldn't breathe. The man on her floor was no ordinary stranger. He was the wolf, she knew it as surely as she knew her own name. His wounds were the same ones she had stitched with trembling hands, the same blood matting his skin. Only now, instead of fur, there was flesh, scarred and strong, stretched over a body built like a warrior. He lay unconscious, his chest rising and falling shallowly, but there was nothing fragile about him. Even broken, he radiated danger. Power. Authority. Emma's thoughts tangled in panic. She should call someone. Police. Hunters. Anyone who could make sense of this. But her hand froze halfway to her phone. What would she even say? "There's a wolf man in my cabin?" They'd think she'd lost her mind. And worse, if they believed her, they'd take him. Cage him. Experiment on him. Her gaze drifted back to his face. Blood streaked his jawline, his cheekbones sharp under the dim firelight. A shadow of stubble framed lips that were parted just enough for his breath to hiss in and out. His skin was cold, too pale against the tattoos that curled across his shoulders and chest. She grabbed another blanket and covered him quickly, almost shy of her own hands brushing over the ridges of muscle. Her heart pounded, her breath shallow. This wasn't just an injured animal anymore. This was a man, an impossibility who had collapsed into her life with the force of destiny. Emma sank against the wall, arms wrapped tight around her knees. The storm raged outside, but it was nothing compared to the chaos inside her. Every instinct told her to be terrified. And yet, she wasn't. Not completely. Because even in this form, even unconscious, the golden eyes she'd seen in the snow haunted her. She must have drifted again, because when her eyes opened next, dawn light filtered through the curtains. She rubbed her eyes, stretching stiff muscles, and froze. He was standing. Tall. Barefoot. A blanket wrapped low around his hips. His back was broad, his shoulders a map of scars and strength. He stood perfectly still, staring at her with those same golden eyes. Emma's breath caught. "You're awake." His voice came, low and rough like gravel dragged across stone. You saved me. It wasn't a question. It was a statement, heavy with something she couldn't name. Emma scrambled to her feet, clutching her robe tighter around her. I found you in the snow. You were dying. I couldn't just leave you there. He tilted his head, studying her as if she were the one out of place. His eyes narrowed, sharp and assessing, but there was no aggression. Just confusion. And something deeper. Finally, he spoke again. Why? Emma blinked. Why what? Why save me? His voice was commanding even in its weakness, carrying the weight of someone used to being obeyed. Humans don't stop for wolves. Not in storms. Not when it's easier to keep driving. Emma's throat tightened. She should have said the simple thing, that she worked with animals, that it was instinct. But instead, her voice cracked softly, because you needed help. And no one else would. That's enough. For a moment, silence stretched between them, thick and pulsing. His golden gaze softened, just slightly, as though her words had struck somewhere he hadn't expected. Then he straightened, wincing from the effort, but his posture was all authority. You don't understand who I am. Emma's eyes flicked over him. I think I understand enough. You're not just a wolf. His lips twitched in something that wasn't quite a smile. Not just a wolf, he echoed. His chest rose as he drew in a steadying breath. I am Kale Nightshade. Alpha King of the Northern Packs. The words should have sounded absurd, pulled from some fantasy novel. And yet, with the way he carried himself, scarred, bleeding, but unbroken, they didn't. They sounded inevitable. Emma shook her head, half laughing from nerves. You expect me to believe that? That you're some kind of king? Kale's eyes flared gold, glowing brighter for a heartbeat before dimming. You saw me shift. You know what I am. Denial won't protect you. Her stomach flipped. She had seen it. She'd watched his body break and rebuild into human form. And she could still hear the sound of it in her bones. There was no denying it. So, werewolves are real, she whispered. Kale inclined his head. And I am their king. Or I was. Until my beta betrayed me. He explained in fragments, how his second-in-command, Marcus, had ambushed him with loyalists, how he'd been framed for murders he didn't commit, how the council had rejected him, stripping him of his title and leaving him for dead in the snow. Emma listened, her heart sinking. She didn't know him, not really, but the pain in his voice was raw, undeniable. She knew the look of someone who had been cast aside, left behind. Finally, when he finished, she whispered, so that's why you were alone. That's why you looked at me like you didn't expect anyone to care. Kale's gaze locked on hers, unreadable. For the first time, his voice softened. And yet you cared. Her chest tightened, heat crawling up her neck. She wanted to look away, but couldn't. Something tethered her to him, something she couldn't explain. Kale's jaw clenched, his gaze flickering over her as though searching for something. His nostrils flared. He froze. Emma frowned. What? His voice was hoarse, but certain. You smell like, mate. The word dropped into the room like a spark on dry kindling. Emma staggered back, shaking her head. Mate? No. No, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not. But even as she said it, her chest pulled toward him, her skin buzzing with an invisible current that had no explanation. Kale stepped closer, his voice low, rough with disbelief. It's impossible. But the moment I woke, I knew. You're mine. Emma's heart thundered. Her world had just shifted as surely as his had. She wasn't just a woman who'd saved a dying wolf. She was the fated mate of the Alpha King. And nothing would ever be the same. Emma's hands tightened on the back of the couch, as though its wooden frame could anchor her in a reality that was quickly unraveling. The man, no, the wolf, stood tall in her living room, wrapped in nothing but a blanket and an aura of command. His golden eyes burned through her, unyielding, certain, as if daring her to question him again. Mate, she repeated faintly, the word foreign on her tongue. You think I'm your mate? Cale's jaw worked, as though he struggled to rein himself in. I don't think. I know. Wolves don't mistake this. Our blood doesn't lie. Emma shook her head, heart racing. That's not possible. I'm not. I'm not even one of you. His gaze softened just enough to make her chest ache. That doesn't matter. The bond doesn't care about rules. Or bloodlines. When the moon goddess chooses, there's no denying it. Emma swallowed hard, forcing her voice steady. You keep saying these things like I should just accept them. But you're asking me to believe that werewolves exist, that you're some kind of king, and that her voice cracked, that I belong to you. Cale's lips curved, not in amusement but in something bitter. Believe what you want. But your scent tells me the truth. Whether you accept it or not, you are mine. The words seared through her like a brand, both terrifying and something else. Something she didn't dare name. Emma shook her head, forcing herself to focus. You said you were a king. What does that even mean? His expression hardened, jaw tightening until the muscle ticked. He looked away for the first time, shoulders tense beneath his scars. I was Alpha King of the Northern Packs, he said, voice low but edged with steel. The strongest of our kind, chosen by blood and by the moon goddess herself. For 10 years, I ruled, protecting my people, keeping balance between the packs. Emma tried to imagine him in some throne room made of stone, surrounded by wolves who bowed to his command. It was impossible. And yet, with the weight of his presence filling her cabin, it wasn't. What happened? She asked quietly. Cale's gaze snapped back to hers, golden eyes blazing with fury, not at her, but at the memory. Betrayal. My own beta, Marcus. He envied what he could never have. The throne. The respect of the council. The loyalty of our people. Emma's pulse quickened. He tried to take it from you? He did more than try. Cale's voice roughened, darkened. He orchestrated attacks on our own wolves, framed me for their deaths. When I went to the council to expose him, his lies were already planted. They looked into my eyes they had trusted for a decade, and they turned away. They rejected me. The word echoed in the air, heavy and sharp. Emma flinched. Cale's chest rose and fell with restrained violence. They stripped me of my title. My pack abandoned me. Marcus declared himself Alpha Regent and left me for dead in the mountains. His claws, his men, they made sure I couldn't rise again. Emma's hand drifted to her throat. So those wounds. His lips twisted. Were meant to finish me. To erase me from history. But I'm not so easy to kill. Silence filled the room. Emma stared at him, torn between fear and pity. She knew betrayal. She knew loneliness. But to be cast out by an entire world, rejected by those meant to be family, it was a wound she couldn't imagine healing. Finally, she whispered, "That's why you were lying there. That's why you looked at me like," she trailed off, unable to finish. Cale's gaze softened, just barely. Like I didn't expect anyone to care? Her chest tightened. She nodded. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The storm outside had faded to a gentle hush, but inside, the air was alive with something else, something thick, electric, undeniable. Emma forced herself to break it. So what now? You're alive. What are you going to do? Cale's eyes darkened. Take back what was stolen. Marcus sits on a throne that doesn't belong to him. My counsel cowers in the shadow of lies. I will reclaim my place. And when I do, his gaze swept over her, lingering, claiming. I will not go alone. Emma's breath caught. You expect me to go with you? You are my mate, he said simply, as if it were law. Once claimed, you will be Luna. Queen beside me. No wolf will dare stand against us. Her knees weakened. She clutched the couch tighter. This was insane. She was a vet assistant in a small mountain town. She paid bills late, drank instant coffee for breakfast, and patched up stray cats in her free time. She was nobody. And yet, when he looked at her, she didn't feel like nobody. She felt seen. Chosen. Wanted. Dangerously so. Emma's voice trembled as she whispered, "What if I don't want that life?" Cale's expression didn't waver, but his voice softened, roughened with something almost vulnerable. Then I'll walk away. I won't force what is meant to be sacred. But know this, wolves cannot sever the bond. Once it forms, it is everything. Whether near or far, you will always feel me. And I will always feel you. Her heart raced, a wild drumbeat against her ribs. She should say no. She should end this before it swallowed her whole. But when she opened her mouth, the only words that came were, "Then what happens if I say yes?" Cale's eyes burned brighter, gold flaring like fire. Then you will never face this world alone again. Emma's heart hadn't stopped racing since those words left his mouth. Mate. The sound of it lingered in the air, heavy and electric, as if the cabin itself had absorbed its power. She shook her head, stepping back a fraction. You can't just say that. You don't even know me. Cale followed her movement with his eyes, slow and deliberate, like a predator circling prey, but there was no malice in it. Only certainty. I don't need to know you. My wolf knows. Every part of me knows. You are mine. The declaration sent a shiver through her, not just of fear, but of something deeper, something her body recognized even if her mind rejected it. Her throat tightened. You keep saying that like it's supposed to mean something to me. His gaze sharpened. It does mean something. You feel it. Don't pretend you don't. Emma swallowed hard, refusing to meet his eyes. She did feel it. That strange pull, like invisible threads tugging her closer no matter how she tried to resist. It was madness. She had no explanation, no logic to anchor herself with. Only the undeniable truth that when he looked at her, something inside her wanted to answer. I don't know what this is, she whispered. But I can't just accept it. I'm not some chosen queen. I'm not Luna material. Cale stepped closer, his voice low, raw with intensity. The mate bond isn't about crowns or thrones. It's the will of the moon goddess. It's fate. Wolves spend lifetimes searching for it. Many die without ever finding their true mate. And his voice broke slightly, then steadied. I never thought I would find mine. Not like this. Not after everything. Emma forced herself to look up at him. And yet here I am. A human. The worst possible option for you. His jaw clenched, golden eyes burning hotter. No. The perfect one. Do you think I care about rules? About what the council whispers? The moment I scented you, everything else ceased to matter. Do you understand what that means? Her lips parted, but no words came. Kale exhaled, fighting to keep his voice calm. When a wolf finds their mate, it's not a choice. It's a bond written into our blood. Our souls are tethered. I can feel your heartbeat from across the room. I can sense your fear, your doubt, even your courage. And every instinct I have tells me one thing: protect you. Claim you. Never let you go. The air thickened, pressing against Emma's chest. She wanted to deny it, to push back against the impossible. But as he spoke, she realized she could feel something. A strange awareness that hadn't been there before. She had thought it was adrenaline, exhaustion from the storm, but now, it was him. Her voice cracked. And if I reject it? Kale's expression darkened, but he didn't step away. Humans can walk away. Wolves cannot. If you reject me, I will survive, but it will tear at me every day. I will always feel the bond. Always ache for what should have been. The raw honesty in his tone pierced through her chest like a blade. He wasn't begging. Kale Nightshade didn't strike her as a man who begged for anything. He was simply telling her the truth. Emma's throat tightened. That's not fair. You didn't choose me, and I didn't choose this. Something flickered in his gaze, pain, quickly masked by steel. Fate isn't fair. But sometimes, it gives us exactly what we need, even if we can't see it yet. Silence stretched between them. Emma's pulse hammered in her ears. She wanted to scream, to run, to hide from the storm he had brought into her quiet life. But instead, she found herself whispering, "Why me?" Kale's expression softened, his voice dropping to something dangerously close to tender. Because you stopped. When everyone else passed me by, you stopped. You looked at me and saw more than a dying wolf. You saw someone worth saving. Her breath caught, tears stinging her eyes. It was the same thing she had told herself so many times before, that broken things still deserved a chance. That even the most wounded could heal. And now, somehow, those words had bound her to him in a way she hadn't expected. Emma stepped back, shaking her head. This is too much. I need time. I need. But she stopped. Because Kale had closed the distance, not touching her, but close enough that the heat from his body seeped into her skin. His gaze locked on hers, molten gold, unflinching. You can take all the time you need, he said softly. But know this, Emma Thorne. The bond is already there. And whether you accept it today, tomorrow, or years from now, I will feel it. I will feel you. Always. Her breath trembled. She wanted to deny him. To shout that she didn't believe in destiny, that she didn't believe in bonds written in blood. But when his golden eyes searched hers, the only truth she found was the one she couldn't escape. She did feel it. The impossible choice loomed before her. Run and cling to the fragile normal life she knew, or step into a world of fangs, power, and a bond that promised to consume her whole. And in the silence that followed, Emma realized that no matter what she chose, her life would never, ever be the same. Morning broke with a sky of pale gray, the storm finally easing into silence. Emma woke to the smell of coffee and the sight of Kale moving through her small kitchen like he owned the space. He wore the same blanket from the night before, tied at his waist, his movements fluid even though his body still bore the marks of battle. The sight made Emma's pulse skip. He looked too large, too powerful, for her modest cabin. As though the walls couldn't contain him. He caught her staring, golden eyes glinting. You should eat. We have a long journey ahead. Emma blinked. Journey? Kale set the mug down in front of her, his voice steady, commanding. I'm returning to my pack lands. To Silvercrest. Marcus will not sit on my throne unchallenged. Her stomach twisted. You mean the same pack that rejected you? The same council that left you for dead? His jaw hardened. Yes. I'll face them. With proof. And with you. Emma nearly dropped the mug. Me? Cale, I'm not a warrior. I'm not even a wolf. What could I possibly do there? He leaned forward, gaze searing. You are my mate. That is everything. The words left her breathless, her chest tightening at the intensity of his certainty. She wanted to argue, to deny it, but part of her already knew she wouldn't win. By noon, she was in her truck again, Cale in the passenger seat this time. It felt surreal, this dangerous man, this alpha king, folded awkwardly into her worn old pickup, tattoos stark against his skin, golden eyes watching the snow-dusted trees fly past. For a while, silence stretched between them. But Cale finally broke it, his voice low. Do you know how our world works, Emma? She shook her head. I know nothing about your world. Then listen. His tone softened, though it still carried weight. A pack is family. Every wolf has a place, alpha, beta, gamma, down to omega. Loyalty is everything. Betrayal is punished by blood. His jaw flexed. Marcus knew this. He twisted our laws to make me the traitor. But once the truth is revealed, even his allies will turn on him. Emma gripped the wheel tighter. And where does that leave me? A human doesn't fit anywhere in that hierarchy. Cale studied her profile, his voice dropping almost to a whisper. You fit beside me. Luna. My equal. The pack will learn it, or they will kneel until they do. Emma's throat went dry. He spoke as though it were simple, but she knew it wouldn't be. A human Luna? The thought made her chest ache with doubt. They stopped hours later at a gas station near the edge of town. Emma stepped out to stretch her legs, the icy air biting her cheeks. Cale followed, standing watch, his presence looming like a shadow. That was when it happened. A man in a leather jacket leaned against the gas pump, eyes flashing a faint silver. A wolf. He looked Cale up and down, recognition flickering in his gaze. Then his attention slid to Emma, and his lip curled. You're traveling with a human, he sneered. No wonder Marcus. He didn't finish. Cale moved in a blur, faster than Emma could track. 1 second the man was smirking, the next Cale had him pinned against the pump, a forearm pressed to his throat. Golden eyes blazed with fury. His voice was low, lethal. Speak of her again, and you'll lose your tongue. The wolf's face went pale, his arrogance evaporating under Cale's dominance. He choked out a nod, and Cale shoved him back with a growl. Emma stood frozen, her pulse racing. She had seen him bleed, seen him broken. But now she understood, this was the Alpha King. Not just in title, but in presence. As they returned to the truck, Cale's hands shook slightly. He didn't look at her. I shouldn't have lost control like that. Emma surprised herself. She reached across the seat, brushing her fingers against his knuckles. You weren't out of control. You were protecting me. His hand closed around hers instantly, his grip strong but trembling. His eyes met hers, raw and unguarded. That's what terrifies me. Because I would burn the world to ash if anyone touched you. The admission sent shivers down her spine. She should have pulled her hand back. She didn't. They drove on, deeper into the mountains. The trees grew older, thicker, their branches heavy with snow. Emma's chest tightened with unease as shadows seemed to move in the forest, watching them pass. Cale's eyes stayed on the road ahead, his voice quiet but certain. We're close. The pack lands begin here. Emma swallowed hard, the weight of his words pressing against her chest. Beyond the next ridge lay a world of wolves, power, and laws she didn't understand. A world that might never accept her. And yet, as Cale's warm hand tightened over hers, she felt the bond pulse between them. Whatever awaited, it was too late to turn back. The road narrowed into a trail of packed earth and snow, twisting deeper into the mountains. Emma's fingers tightened on the steering wheel as trees pressed closer, branches like skeletal arms stretching over the truck. The silence here was different, too heavy, too watchful. Cale's eyes burned gold as he stared into the forest. "They know we're here," he murmured. Emma shivered. She hadn't seen anything, but she felt it, an invisible presence pressing down on her chest. Dozens of unseen eyes tracking every turn of her tires. Finally, the forest opened into a valley, and Emma's breath caught. Built into the mountainside was a sprawling estate, stone walls rising like a fortress, roofs sloped and dark against the snow. Smaller cabins dotted the slope, smoke curling from chimneys. Wolves prowled openly through the clearing, some in human form, others massive and furred, their amber and silver eyes glinting with suspicion as the truck rolled in. Emma's stomach dropped. She wasn't just an outsider here. She was prey walking into the den. The moment Cale stepped out of the truck, the murmurs began. "The Alpha King. He's alive? No, it can't be." Gasps echoed. Wolves froze mid-step. Heads bowed instinctively, though hesitation lingered. Their gazes darted between Cale, bloodied, scarred, towering in dominance, and Emma, small and human at his side. The whispers sharpened. "A human? She's with him. Impossible, a mate?" Emma's skin burned. Every stare sliced into her like a knife. She wanted to shrink, to vanish back into the safety of her cabin. But Cale's presence beside her anchored her. His hand brushed hers briefly, an unspoken reassurance that she wasn't alone. And then, from the great hall, a man emerged. Marcus. Emma knew it was him before Cale even stiffened. He was handsome, in the kind of way that made her uneasy, his smile too polished, his eyes too sharp. His dark hair was slicked back, his tailored coat immaculate, but his aura screamed danger. "Brother," Marcus said warmly, spreading his arms as though greeting a long-lost friend. His voice carried easily across the courtyard, smooth as honey hiding poison. "We thought you were dead. We searched for days." Cale's lips curled in a cold, humorless smile. "I'm sure you searched very hard." The tension crackled like a live wire. Wolves circled closer, ears straining to catch every word. Marcus's eyes slid past Cale, and landed on Emma. The warmth in his smile twisted into something else. Calculating. Predatory. His gaze lingered on her too long, and Emma's breath caught. She felt exposed, like he was peeling away layers to find her weaknesses. "And who is this?" Marcus asked smoothly, though his tone sharpened at the edges. "Not a wolf. Surely you haven't brought," his lips twitched. "A human into our sacred lands?" Emma's cheeks burned, but before she could answer, Cale stepped forward, his presence filling the space between them like a storm. "She is mine," he said, voice sharp as steel. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Wolves exchanged stunned looks, whispers rising louder. Marcus's smile didn't falter, but his eyes glittered with malice. "Yours? Surely you don't mean," he laughed, though it was brittle. "The great Alpha King would never take a human as mate." Cale didn't flinch. "Believe it. She is my fated one. My true Luna." The courtyard erupted. Some wolves snarled in outrage. Others whispered in awe. A few even bowed their heads as if instinctively recognizing the bond. Emma's chest tightened, her pulse thundering. She hadn't agreed to any of this, hadn't chosen to be announced like this, but Cale's certainty left no room for doubt. He wasn't just protecting her. He was claiming her before them all. Marcus's expression darkened, though his smile remained. Then the council must hear of this miraculous return. And of your supposed mate. 2 guards stepped forward at his signal. Their eyes flicked nervously between the brothers, unsure of where their loyalty truly lay. Cale squared his shoulders, towering over them, radiating dominance that made the very air thrum. Then take me to them. I'll face the council. The guards hesitated, then bowed their heads and gestured toward the hall. Cale turned to Emma. His golden eyes softened, just slightly. You'll wait in my chambers. Do not leave them, no matter what you hear. Do you understand? Emma swallowed hard, nodding. Every instinct screamed at her to cling to him, but his tone brooked no argument. He leaned close enough that only she could hear, his voice a low growl against her ear. No one touches you. Not while I breathe. Her breath caught, a shiver racing down her spine. She nodded again, too stunned to speak. Cale straightened, his face once more carved from stone, and strode toward the hall with the guards flanking him. Wolves parted, bowing low despite the whispers. Emma stood frozen, her heart pounding as Marcus's gaze lingered on her one last time before he followed. His smile was back, sharp, knowing, and dangerous. And in that moment, Emma realized something terrifying. The storm outside had only been the beginning. The real storm was here, inside these walls. The council chamber was carved from stone, lit by torches that threw jagged shadows across ancient walls. A long table stretched the length of the hall, and around it sat the elders, wolves who had seen centuries, their silver hair and scarred faces carrying the weight of law. Emma wasn't allowed inside. Cale's command still echoed in her ears as she sat in his chambers, her fists clenched in her lap. A wolf named Sarah, young but kind-eyed, had been sent to watch her. Still, Emma's chest ached with each passing minute. The bond tugged mercilessly, her heart racing with Cale's tension even from a distance. Inside, Cale stood tall despite the scars still healing on his body. His golden eyes swept over the elders, his presence filling the room with the dominance of an alpha king. One elder spoke first, his voice low and grave. Cale Nightshade. You were declared rogue and stripped of your title. Why do you stand before us now? Cale's voice was steady, each word cutting through the air. Because lies put me in the snow to die, not truth. I was ambushed by Marcus and his allies. He staged murders, framed me, and poisoned your ears with his deceit. And you, all of you, chose fear over loyalty. Gasps rippled. The accusation was bold, dangerous. Marcus stepped forward smoothly, his face the picture of wounded dignity. My alpha, he said, bowing mockingly, you dishonor yourself with these claims. We mourned you. We searched for you. Yet here you are, casting blame. He turned to the elders, his tone silk. Cale was found covered in blood, 3 of our own slain. Witnesses saw his rage. I did what I had to. The council agreed. Cale's eyes flashed gold. Lies. You set the trap, Marcus. You struck me down when I was weakest. Marcus's expression darkened. And yet here you stand, alive. Convenient, isn't it? But tell us, Cale, where have you been all this time? If not running like a coward? The chamber murmured, voices rising. Cale's voice thundered, silencing them. I was bleeding in the snow, abandoned by the pack I led for a decade. But I survived. Because fate decided I was not finished. His lips curved in a hard smile. Because fate sent me my mate. The room erupted. Elderly wolves surged to their feet, growls of outrage and disbelief shaking the chamber. Impossible. He dares claim this? Marcus laughed, cold and sharp. A mate? Convenient again. And who is this supposed miracle? Cale's jaw clenched. He knew the risk. Still, he turned toward the chamber doors. His voice rang out, commanding. Emma. Come. Her heart lurched. She had promised to stay put, but the bond pulled her to her feet before she could think. Sarah's eyes widened, but she stepped aside as Emma pushed the door open and walked into the chamber. The hall went silent. Dozens of eyes turned on her. Judging. Condemning. A human standing where no human had stood before. Emma's knees trembled, but Cale's golden gaze anchored her. She walked to his side, her pulse hammering in her ears. Marcus's laugh sliced through the silence. This is your mate? A human? He spread his arms to the elders. Proof enough of his madness. Cale's voice dropped to a growl. Sent her. Then tell me I lie. The oldest among them, Elder Rosalind, rose slowly. Her hair was white as frost, her eyes sharp as steel. She stepped forward, approaching Emma with a weight that made Emma's chest tighten. Rosalind's gaze pierced her. Then, with deliberate slowness, she inhaled deeply. The room held its breath. And then Rosalind's lips parted. The bond is true. Gasps exploded around the chamber. Some wolves bowed their heads instinctively, accepting the moon goddess's decree. Others snarled, enraged. Marcus's face twisted, though he quickly masked it with a sneer. Even if the bond is real, it proves nothing. A wolf who slaughters his own is not absolved by a mate. He should be punished, not restored. Cale's voice cracked like thunder. I am no murderer. You are the traitor, Marcus. And I will prove it. Marcus's eyes glittered with venom. Then let us follow the old ways. Trial by combat. At dawn. Alpha against alpha. The chamber fell into shocked silence. Rosalind's eyes narrowed. Marcus, you would risk this? Marcus spread his hands. If he is innocent, the goddess will favor him. If not, justice will be done. What could be more fair? Cale's lips curled into a dangerous smile. So be it. Emma's chest seized. She stepped forward, her voice breaking. No, he's not healed, he. Cale caught her hand in his, squeezing once, hard enough to steady her. His gaze locked on hers, silent but certain. Trust me. But Emma couldn't trust silence. Her voice shook, echoing off stone. You all abandoned him. You left him to die when you should have stood with him. And I, her voice cracked, I didn't even know him, but I chose to save him. If that doesn't make him worthy of your loyalty, then maybe none of you are worthy of him. The chamber froze. For a heartbeat, even Marcus's mask slipped. Rosalind's lips curved faintly, approving. The human has the heart of a wolf. But Marcus's eyes glittered with malice as he leaned forward, voice dripping with triumph. Then let the dawn decide. One of us will not leave this chamber alive. The council chamber still echoed in Emma's mind long after the torches had dimmed. The words trial by combat rang like a death sentence. Dawn was only hours away, and Cale was still bleeding, still scarred from wounds that should have taken weeks to heal. Back in his chambers, she sat at his side, pressing a damp cloth against the angry gash across his ribs. He winced, but didn't pull away. His body was fire beneath her touch, hot with fever and restrained power. You shouldn't fight tomorrow, she whispered, her voice trembling. Not like this. You'll die. Cale's eyes opened slowly, golden even in the flickering lamplight. He looked at her with a steadiness that made her chest ache. I will not die. Not while you are here. Her throat tightened. You can't promise that. He caught her wrist, his grip firm but gentle, pulling her hand against his chest. I don't make promises I can't keep. But I can't win this fight alone. Emma frowned, confused. Then what do we do? What could I possibly? The bond. His voice was low, roughened by restraint. It isn't complete. Not until I claim you. Heat surged through her, her heart stuttering at the intensity in his gaze. Claim me? Cale's jaw clenched, as though fighting himself. The bond exists, yes. But to draw on its full strength, to be whole, I must mark you. My bite will seal it, tie our souls together. Your strength becomes mine. My life becomes yours. Emma's breath hitched. And if you don't? His eyes darkened. Then I go into battle weaker. And Marcus will kill me. The words landed like stones in her chest. She stared at him, fear warring with something hotter, something she couldn't name. And what happens to me? If you mark me? Cale's voice softened, almost breaking. You become mine. Bound to me for life. The pack will see you as Luna. There is no undoing it. No escape. Silence fell. The fire popped in the hearth. Emma's hands trembled where they pressed against his skin, feeling the steady beat of his heart. She should have run. She should have said no, that this was madness, that she wanted nothing to do with it. But when she met his gaze, she saw something rawer than dominance. She saw fear. Not of Marcus. Not of death. But of her turning away. He whispered, I've led armies. I've faced down monsters. But you terrify me, Emma Thorne. Because if I lose you, I lose everything. Her chest broke open at the words. She leaned closer, her voice cracking. Then don't lose me. Claim me. Fight for us. And win. The air between them ignited. Cale cupped her face in his hands, his touch both gentle and desperate. The kiss came like a storm, consuming, inevitable. Heat surged through her veins, electricity dancing beneath her skin as if their very souls were sparking against each other. Her fingers tangled in his hair, his breath ragged against her lips. The mate bond roared alive, a pull so strong it stole her breath. He tore away, panting, his forehead pressed to hers. Say yes. Say you want this. Emma's heart thundered. She had never been so terrified, never been so certain. Her voice trembled, but it carried the truth. I want you. All of you. Forever. A sound rumbled from his chest, half growl, half groan, as his lips trailed down her neck. Her skin burned under his touch, every nerve alive. And then his teeth grazed her shoulder, right where neck met collarbone. She gasped, clutching him tighter. Once I do this, there is no turning back, he rasped. She whispered, then don't you dare stop. His fangs sank in. The pain was sharp, white-hot, but it melted instantly into a flood of heat, pleasure, connection so overwhelming it stole her breath. She cried out, clutching him as light seemed to explode behind her eyes. The bond snapped into place. She could feel him, his strength, his rage, his devotion, like a second heartbeat inside her chest. His thoughts brushed hers, raw emotion pouring between them. I can feel you, she gasped, eyes wide. Cale's voice was wrecked, thick with awe. And I can feel you. Your courage. Your light. You've made me whole. He kissed her again, deeper, fiercer, as though sealing the promise with every breath. When dawn's first light touched the horizon, they lay tangled together, his mark burning warm on her skin, his arms locked tight around her. Cale pressed his forehead to hers, his voice steady now, filled with certainty. With this bond, I am stronger. With you, I cannot lose. But Emma knew the truth as her chest tightened with fear. The bond had made him stronger. But at dawn, Cale would still have to face Marcus. And now, if he fell, she would fall with him. Dawn broke cold and sharp, the pale sun casting a silver glow across the pack's great courtyard. Wolves gathered from every corner of the territory, lining the stone walls, shifting restlessly in both human and wolf form. The air thrummed with tension. Today, an alpha king would rise, or fall. Emma stood at the edge of the arena, Cale's cloak wrapped around her shoulders. The mark at her neck burned, a pulsing reminder of what they had shared, of the bond now woven between them. She could feel him in her chest, steady and resolute. His focus. His determination. His quiet fear, for her, not for himself. Cale stepped forward into the circle. He was still scarred, still healing, but he held himself with the weight of a king. His golden eyes swept over the crowd, silencing whispers, commanding attention without a word. Marcus emerged from the opposite side. Taller than Cale, bulkier, his veins bulged with unnatural power. His gray wolf form had grown monstrous from the enhancers he had consumed, his eyes bloodshot, almost feral. Gasps rose as Marcus shifted in front of them all, his body snapping into the hulking beast. He snarled, saliva spraying, claws raking the stone beneath him. Cale's bones cracked as he shifted too, his form exploding into the massive black wolf Emma had first seen dying in the snow. Midnight fur, golden eyes burning like fire. The crowd roared. The fight had begun. Marcus lunged first, his sheer size slamming Cale onto his side. Stone cracked under the impact, and Emma flinched as pain stabbed her chest through the bond. She bit her lip hard enough to draw blood, refusing to scream. Cale rolled, snapping his jaws, slashing Marcus across the muzzle. Blood spattered the ground. He moved with deadly precision, but Marcus's strength was overwhelming, every strike fueled by the unnatural venom of his enhancers. Emma clutched the cloak tighter, whispering under her breath. Get up. Please, Cale, get up. Cale staggered, golden eyes flashing as Marcus drove him back. The crowd growled, some chanting Marcus's name, others silent in horror. Marcus pinned Cale, fangs digging into his shoulder. The bomb seared through Emma, Cale's pain was her pain. Her knees buckled, but she forced herself upright. No, she shouted, her voice cracking across the arena. You are not defeated. You are my Alpha King. The words tore through the bond like lightning. Cale's ears twitched, his golden eyes snapping wide. He roared, a sound so powerful it shook the walls, and twisted beneath Marcus's hold. With sudden strength, he surged upward, his black wolf form slamming Marcus back. Claws raked flesh, fangs tore across Marcus's throat. The larger wolf staggered, shocked, his body trembling as the borrowed strength faltered. Cale pressed the attack, every move fueled by Emma's voice, her belief echoing in his chest through the bond. Blow after blow landed until Marcus collapsed, his monstrous form shrinking back into human, bloodied and gasping on the stone floor. Silence fell. Cale stood over him, teeth bared, fangs poised for the killing strike. One bite would end it. The crowd held its breath. Marcus coughed, laughing weakly through the blood. Do it, brother. Kill me. Prove to them you are the monster I said you were. Cale's golden eyes burned, but then he pulled back, his voice booming through the bond and the air alike. No. I don't need to kill you to prove I am king. Your lies have already destroyed you. Marcus's eyes widened as the elder stepped forward. Elder Rosalind's voice cut through the silence. By his own confession, Marcus betrayed his alpha, murdered his kin, and shamed our laws. He is stripped of rank and exiled. Let no pack grant him shelter. Marcus snarled weakly, but none came to his aid. He was dragged away, his fate sealed. Cale turned to the crowd, his massive wolf form towering, his golden eyes locking with theirs. Slowly, deliberately, he shifted back to human form, standing scarred but unbroken. Then he extended his hand toward Emma. Her heart pounded as she stepped into the circle, the whispers swelling into roars. Every eye was on her. Cale's fingers brushed hers, warm and steady. This is Emma Thorne, he declared, his voice carrying over the courtyard. My mate. My Luna. The moon goddess has chosen her, and so she will stand beside me as your queen. The bond surged, sealing his words with undeniable truth. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then, one by one, wolves knelt. First the elders, then the crowd, until the entire pack bowed before their alpha king and his Luna. Emma's throat tightened, tears stinging her eyes. She wasn't just a girl from Pinehaven anymore. She wasn't broken, or invisible. She was seen. Chosen. Home. Cale leaned close, his voice a whisper only she could hear. With you, I have everything. Without you, I am nothing. Her lips trembled as she answered, then you'll never be without me. And as the pack howled their allegiance, Emma threw her head back, the sound bursting from her own throat, wild, fierce, and true. She wasn't just human anymore. She was Luna.